Well, many folks, maybe you're one of them, have memorized Psalm 23 in the King James Version, which ends with this statement in verse 6. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Those words of assurance have brought hope and comfort to millions. And today, I want us to look more closely at the original meaning behind a few of those words as they relate to the ongoing work of the Good Shepherd. A quick Hebrew lesson for us all. Let's begin with the word mercy. The Hebrew word behind the English word mercy is chesed. In English, chesed is most often translated as steadfast love, kindness, or loyalty. Listen to chesed in Psalm 33:5. The earth is full of the steadfast love, chesed, of the Lord. The next word to check out is follow. The Hebrew word radaf means to pursue or to chase after. Radaf is commonly used throughout the Old Testament to describe armies pursuing their enemies in battle. To follow someone in this way is not like a passive trailing after. This is like hot pursuit. And finally, the word dwell. Dwell is an interesting Hebrew word. It actually means to return, yashav, to return, to turn back. Listen to its use in Psalm 22:27. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to yashav, the Lord. So if we put all those pieces together, we might rephrase Psalm 23:6 this way. Certainly goodness and steadfast love will pursue me all the days of my life. I am back home in the house of the Lord for the rest of my life. So now that we've completed a brief and hopefully painless Hebrew vocabulary lesson, I want us to consider how that statement fits in the context of a poem about God as our shepherd. Throughout this psalm, we have noted how the shepherd leads his sheep to rich green pastures and clear, calm waters, how he guides the sheep, protects them, accompanies them through dark valleys, provides for their physical needs. So it makes sense to me that the closing line of this poem would sync up with those same images, with one final description of the work of this good shepherd. It's, I think, easy to imagine how a shepherd might chase after a wayward sheep to bring it back to the flock, right? Back where it belongs. We can imagine a shepherd prompted by kindness and loyalty, chesed, might chase after, pursue radaf, that wayward sheep, to get it back, yashav, back home where it belongs. In fact, Jesus told a parable about this in Luke 15, a chapter that includes 3 stories about things lost and found: a lost sheep, a lost coin, a lost son. In each of those stories, God is portrayed as the one seeking out what has been lost. Luke 15:3-6. Jesus told them this story. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go to search for the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. Now that sounds like the work of a good shepherd, pursuing the one who was lost, never giving up till he finds it and brings it home. This is a good time to remember, too, that David, the author of Psalm 23, had been a shepherd himself. He had years of experience caring for sheep, leading them to good grazing pastures and streams of cool water. He knew what it took to protect his flock, to care for little lambs, to tend to the injured ones, to chase after a wayward sheep and bring it back to his fold. He knew what it took to be a good shepherd. And he recognized those same qualities in God. in the way God cares for, guides, provides for, protects, and pursues those who belong to him. Some of you here might be able to tell a story of how God pursued you and brought you back into the fold. There are countless testimonies to the persistence of God who just won't give up on his wayward children. In late 1800s, poet Francis Thompson described the work of this persistent, pursuing God in a poem he entitled The Hound of Heaven. In rich Victorian English, Thompson writes that his attempts to run from God led him right to his knees, where he was defenseless, grimed with smears, his youth mangled, his heart broken and overwhelmed with grief. Yet God continued to pursue him. And despite Thompson's repeated efforts to drive away the love of God, he finally turns to see God waiting for him and accepts God's invitation to come back home. This hound of heaven is like a herding dog, nipping at our heels, chasing after us with unlimited goodness and steadfast love to draw us back to God's loving presence. For thus says the Lord God, I myself will search for my sheep and I will seek them out. I will seek the lost and I will bring back the strayed, and I will bind up the injured and I will strengthen the weak. While some of us may have or will choose to intentionally run away from God, others of us may inadvertently fall into a pit, trip over our circumstances, become ensnared by the evils of this world, or take a wrong turn without even realizing it. No matter how we've managed to become lost or separated or injured, God is on a rescue mission, searching for us, pursuing us, not to capture us for destruction or even against our will, but so that when we look over our shoulder, we have no doubt that the loving presence of God is as close as our own shadow. When I think about goodness and steadfast love chasing after me all of my days, there's a particular image that comes to mind. This is a picture of my son, James, chasing after some little boys in a small village in Belize in Central America. They were playing tag, or catch, as they call it. And I love this picture of my son because it reveals the pure delight he found in spending time with those children who, like children everywhere, crave the attention and unconditional love of a grown-up. James said they played this game over and over again, chasing one another down dusty roads, running for the pure joy of it. Like these boys running full speed after one another, God is hounding us in the best way, chasing after us with limitless goodness and mercy, reaching out to capture and embrace us with divine love. I hope this image will stick with you, at least for today, as you consider how God is pursuing you right now. Maybe you are living in the best of times, or maybe you are suffering in the worst of times. Whatever you are experiencing, can you take a glance over your shoulder and see evidence of the goodness of God in your life? You know, there's a hidden truth behind this photo of my son. Although this picture is an expression of pure joy, it was actually taken during one of the most difficult seasons of James's life. Now, I asked James for permission to share this picture and to share some of his story. And he described this moment captured right here as the calm in the middle of the storm. When this photo was taken in the summer of 2019, James was a rising high school senior. This should have been a season for celebration and anticipation of an exciting new chapter of life, but James was struggling with depression. drowning in feelings of worthlessness, and daily fighting thoughts of taking his own life. James had fallen into a pit that he couldn't rescue himself out of. Now, he never intentionally ran away from Jesus, but he struggled to believe he was worthy of God's love. He wrestled with overwhelming thoughts of self-hatred. He couldn't see any light through the dark clouds of depression, but somehow he was still straining to hear the voice of the Good Shepherd through all of that negative noise. And a song he held tightly to during that season was Reckless Love. Those words we just sang, there's no shadow you won't light up, no mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. I think for James, that song was a thread of hope that helped him hang on to the promise of God's steadfast love. In the words of that song, James could hear the distant voice of the shepherd calling his name, searching for him, pursuing his heart. While faint and distant, God's voice still echoed across the depths of that dark valley. The Good Shepherd was chasing after James's broken heart, longing to bring him back to a place of divine comfort and care, to a knowledge of his infinite worth in the eyes of a loving God. And that pursuit eventually resulted in James's desire and willingness to turn and find his way down the road of healing. Now, James asked me to be sure to share with you that this did not happen instantly, nor did he experience a drastic change in his circumstances. His journey out of the valley was not easy. He did a lot of work to deal with past mistakes and to allow God to heal him from past hurts. He sought help from others. He went to counseling. He entered into difficult conversations, some of which led to the reconciliation he needed so badly, and some that didn't. But James allowed the hound of heaven to overtake him with goodness and mercy. And the Good Shepherd gently carried him out of the depths of anxious despair back to where he could rest in his worth as a beloved child of God. God's pursuit, reckless, relentless pursuit of James's heart, ultimately led to the inner healing he so desperately needed. Now, I realize James's story is not everyone's story. Not all stories like this have a happy ending. Sometimes the waves of despair are just too strong, and that pain is indescribable for everyone involved. If you are struggling with feelings of hopelessness or worthlessness or thoughts of harming yourself, please hear this. You're not alone. Goodness and unending love are closer than you think. Jesus, the Good Shepherd, cares for you just as you are, right here, right now, and always. And there is help through counseling and medication to help clear the way for you to see through the dark clouds to the light that is trying to break through. As the psalmist reminds us, the Good Shepherd never stops pursuing us with goodness, mercy, and loving kindness. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. On the mountaintops of life and through shadow-stained valleys, the Good Shepherd searches for his sheep to bring them to a place of life and rest, to bring them home. There's no shadow he won't light up, mountain he won't climb up, coming after you. I want to close with this modern interpretation of a portion of Francis Thompson's poem, The Hound of Heaven. I fled him down the nights and down the days. I fled him down the arches of my years. But always, softly, steadily, he followed. Not with fury, but with faithful footsteps. Not with thunder, but with tenderness. I tried to hide in joy, in fear, in pride, yet his love pursued me still, until at last, weary and worn, I turned and found him waiting. Whatever you are feeling today, whatever your circumstances, whatever dark valley you may be walking through, whatever is keeping you from turning to God or returning to God, God hasn't given up on you. God is continuously in pursuit of your heart, chasing after you with goodness and steadfast love. Turn and see the Good Shepherd right on your heels, waiting for you with open arms. Thanks be to God. Amen.